Can you say, do you know how to say Kim's name in German? Kim Gottwald?
Kim Gottwald.
Gottwald.
Kim Gottwald, yeah.
Do you know, we'll just start out there. Jonny Davies. We'll keep the Kim name in there. You were telling this to me a minute ago, so we'll start out the podcast on a light note. Great to have you, man.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You made Kim laugh. Took you 45 minutes.
It took me a little while. He was serious. He was locked in during the race. He had I'm pretty sure his strategy was 0 caffeine for the first day or so, which makes things pretty miserable when you're going through those like really late hours. I smashed my caffeine at 4 a.m. because I was doing a few little micro sleeps, and I got to the 4 a.m. round, and I was in tears on the course. I was like, I feel so tired, so rough. I'm a big caffeine guy. Like, I love my coffees in the morning. I, stick a few Red Bulls here and there. And for me to be running through that late into the night, not caffeinated, falling asleep, waking up, running again, pitch darkness, it feels very lonely out there. So especially some parts of the course where there's no other light sources coming in. It's just you and your head torch. And I was in a real dark place. So I know what that feels like. You don't want to smile. There are some things you can try and smile your way through, but other parts of those races, you're just suffering in there, and especially on those like really dark, lonely moments. And Kim, to make sure he can go run as he has just done, obviously running into through day 2 into 3, has made sure that he's hit that caffeine hits later on as you go. But I did make it my mission to make him smile. He's a very serious competitor, as proven by his record over the last year. But for me, it's always, a big part of being in part of these ultra marathons, especially backyard format, is you're kind of running together. You're sharing that experience with so many other runners, and that could be people who's their first ultra marathon, or you guys like Harvey Lewis who've been doing this for years. And I think as well as you wanting to perform well yourself, you also want to support other people, lift other people, help people get to maybe their distance PR, or maybe get to achieve something that they're really proud of. And I think as much as you've got your crews there to support you and help you, you only see them for a very short period of that time. You rely so heavily on the other runners around you for, keeping yourself entertained, keeping spirits high, and just having so many amazing deep conversations, especially with a race like this. It means so much to the people who are part of it. They've trained so hard, they got it on the ballot. There's 12,000 or so people who put in for a place in this race, and there's only 170 spots available, right? So, you can tell how much it matters. People travel from all over the world to be there. And as a representative of BPN on course, I do feel I have a responsibility to make sure people feel welcome, supported, cared for, listened to, as they go around trying to smash their goals. And hey, we've got some people to hit their distance PRs and hit the big milestones, the 50 milestone, the 100K milestone. 50 runners hitting the 100-mile mark. Huge.
What was it last year?
About 15, 16.
Okay, so
hit that, and then as soon as that 100-mile mark hit, just bells rang a bunch of times. I was cooked at that point as well. The heat really did me bad there, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go up for another round and just see how I'm getting on here. If I can hold my drink or fluids down, because I started vomiting like 3 hours before, and nothing was staying down. And I was thinking, considering it was pretty hot, it was 105 again, and I was like, okay, if I can get this one bottle of water down, I'll keep going, I'll stay in the race. And I started lap 25, chucked half a bottle of water down. It stayed down for about 10 seconds, and it all came back up again. I was like, all right, I think I'm done here. But
the bell looks nice.
Yeah. I was like, all right, in that case, let's sensible heads prevail. My crew were like, hey, listen, our priority is your safety, no matter what. And as much as I wanted to carry on, they was like, hey, listen, if you're not able to stomach any fluids, especially when it's that hot, like that's
call it a day.
That's a call it a day there, which is that's what you want out of a crew, right? They're there to make the calls on your behalf when you don't want to.
Yep.
They're there to say, hey, there's a red line here. We're here to make sure you run well, race well, do your best, but also safety is always a paramount. So that's an important role of the crew, because I'll be honest with you, when you're out there doing this sort of stuff, you have a very big disregard for your own safety and well-being, because your body is screaming at you to stop running. They're thinking, what is going on here? So you have to, that's why having a crew that you trust, that you've worked with before, that has your well-being at heart, doesn't mean they're not there, giving you head strokes and hugs all the time. They're there to do a job and to keep you going and keep you in the race and keep you in the fight. But we say with the crew is like, hey, there are certain red lines that if we cross them and you say, hey, you're done, it means we're done.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the joke that broke Kim? Or is it R-rated? Can't say it on the pod.
He kept farting a lot, which to be fair, we all were because of how many carbs we're ingesting and your stomach's going there.
That's
Everyone's
funny.
very
I wouldn't have
gassy.
thought of that. Makes sense,
and he
though.
absolutely, I mean, I hadn't seen him for quite a lot of the race. He started with very slow laps, and he ripped one right in front of me. And part of my language, but it stank. And I remember just jumping in there and being like, "What are you eating, buddy? Like, come on here." And nothing. And I heard him keep popping one out later. And then we were in front of a bunch of other people. And I was like, "Kim, bud, I know you're running well, buddy, but you can't be dropping farts like that on people here and there. Like, what are you eating?" And he just like zoned out for a second. I caught the smile on that. And he just said it was some German food that I won't try and butcher the name of pronunciation, but it's good to see him smile. And same thing now. We're looking at the race now. It's just passing to the 300-mile mark, and you've got Mark and Kendall both crushing it. They were both smiling. Even now, battling through to where they are. I can't understand just how bad they're feeling, but they've got a smile on their faces and they're doing their best and they're trying, and that's a really wonderful thing to see because they've both been super supportive to everyone on course. I could hear him chatting to people, helping people, encouraging people. Hell, even last year, Kendall I was really talking about hydration last year, and obviously Kendall was going there to, push himself for the win, which he did. He still took the time to be supportive and help people, to chat to me about my hydration, what I need to do, maybe some things. So he was very much saying, hey, you need to make sure you're peeing at least once an hour as a sign of hydration. I hadn't peed in 8 hours. He's like, okay, you are dehydrated. You need to massively increase the volumes of fluid, having fluid on you, rather than just waiting until you get back in for 15 minutes and necking a bunch of fluids. Bring some bottles out with you. Make sure you're sipping constantly. Make sure you're doing this. And that actually really helped me out because I was struggling massively with the heat. Coming from the United Kingdom, we're not known for our hot weather. It's usually pretty rainy, miserable. So coming out to Texas to do these races here, where it's considerably warmer, way more humid, it has a big impact on the body. There's certain things you can do with heat preparation, with heat adaptation training, sauna work, but ultimately being outside running for that long in those sort of temperatures has a really profound effect on the body. And he knows that so well. He lives in Costa Rica, where the temperatures there very similar to here, super humid, and so he has a great series of experiences of how do you run like that in those conditions, and what does that do to your body. So it was really kind of him to share that with me last year, and even this year he was giving me advice and help all along the way. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this race. I know it's competitive. I know people are there to win and push themselves hard, but there is a camaraderie amongst the runners on course, which is a beautiful thing that you don't often get in other races or formats, where the leaders or the guys that are going to win this thing are miles ahead of you from hour one. It's this one here where I'm running with some absolute greats like Harvey Lewis, and I'm chatting to him, picking his brain about ideas or strategies and this kind of stuff. And it's a really beautiful experience to have that and share that, because then that builds that camaraderie. You want those around you to succeed as much as you want yourself to succeed, and you want to make sure you're helping people out and sharing with information and tactics and strategies, and how can you help build that belief in other people when when that belief level starts to drop down a bit? How can you lift those up around you? And for me, that's always, I think, one of the most important things of a race like this. Where I come, where my position is, that's important for me, right? But it's not the most important thing. How do I support those on course? How do I help people get to their distance PRs? How can I show up, not just myself, but for those around me? I think it's a really important factor within these races, because the ultra running community is very, very special. I think unlike other areas of running where it's very numbers focused, times focused, performance focused, there's a really beautiful element to ultra running, which has this really unique community where there's a high level of consideration and care for each other, because you're ultimately putting yourselves all in a very vulnerable state physically. And I think it's so beautiful to see that level of care amongst all the runners, because we're all hurting. Doesn't matter who you are. Everyone's out there really hurting. So that's, I think, is a really special part of this, because everyone's got their reasons for running and pushing themselves that far. And I think the more you can understand that from your fellow runners, it allows you to understand that more in yourself. And that's why these things are such an incredible experience to be part of.
Would you agree with the classic sentiment that, like, in helping others, you help yourself? And that's why a lot of these runners are doing it. Like, it provides, I mean, if you're out there for 3 days, it's probably going to help you break up the time to help someone out for a lap, shut your brain off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, there was, the best laps I had with the time just flew by. I would just be yapping away with someone. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh, wow, that's another 4.2 miles done. And there's other laps where you're on your own. There's a moment in the night where my headphones had died. I had no one around me, and I was running, and I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, this lap is going on forever. Whereas other laps where you're just yapping away with someone, you dial into your cadence and you're just in that rhythm, it flies by. So, yeah, huge element to that, where, you're providing that support for other people, but in turn, it's a two-way conversation, right? They're helping you as well, so it's definitely that. And I just think it's lovely to be present for people who are sharing things about themselves, of what their journey looks like, to go from where they were, where they used to be, that journey of training, that process of improvement, to being here, doing something so wild, is a really beautiful story. And everyone's got a beautiful story in there. There's no one who showed up to that race who hadn't worked really, really hard to put themselves in the best possible condition. And to listen to everyone's stories of from when they got into the race to how they've been taking their training, what sacrifices they've made, who they've become throughout that process, and what they learn about themselves for that process. And that race is just simply the last run of that massive period of time where people have committed themselves so much to it. So I think that's really beautiful, and that's the way I was looking at this. 99% of the work is the stuff you do before the race. That race is just the final run you've got to do of that block, and that's a really nice feeling, framing it that way, as opposed to thinking, God, I've got 100 miles to try and run. It's very much like, no, I ran significantly further in preparation for this.
Yeah.
That's where the bulk of the work is. This is just the last piece.
A race is a celebration of all the hard work you put in. It's like the cherry on top.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You ran the inaugural race last year. During that race, did you realize it would be as big as it ended up being, specifically being on the course and not necessarily seeing the BPN account explode on social media?
I had no idea that was all going on. For reference, when you're on that course, there's a couple of people around you on a dirt trail in a ranch in Texas. There's no crowds, there's no spectators. So even when you come back in, it's just, it feels like, a very small little festival or party. It's very hard to understand what was going on. So I wasn't really checking my phone. I'd put up a few stories here and there, but I had my phone on Do Not Disturb. I didn't want friends back home, checking this sort of stuff. It wasn't until I finished, I looked through my WhatsApps and iMessages for American followers. Very European of me to say WhatsApp. And I must have had 200 WhatsApps from people. And some of these people I haven't spoken to in years. I'm thinking, why are they messaging me? But I've been putting up content, and I haven't even checking how it's doing or anything like that. So I've been putting up my videos and my pictures, that sort of stuff from the race. And I was like, how are these people? Some people I haven't spoken to in years reaching out and messaging me. And it's because, and people, bear in mind, a lot of these people don't have an interest in running, but they were watching what was going on. I had no idea that was going on. I think anyone did on course, because we were just like, this is like a little backyard ultra marathon for BPN, Stuff and Brand, we work with, and this is a really cool experience we get to do. And hey, we're going to go hit the 100-mile mark, and it's really hot. At no point was anyone really on course thinking there are so many people watching this. And so that was, well, I remember finishing, and someone was like, yeah, the live stream. I was like, what live streams? I didn't realize live streams. When Trey was he was walking around the course with an iPhone filming, and I was like, hey, BPN's got a pretty good budget for cameras. Why is he holding an iPhone out there? Like, I've never seen him filming an iPhone in his life. He's got these amazing bits of kit to work with. And he was chatting to me, and I was unaware I was on a live stream. Wow. And he was asking me questions, and I'm just out there cracking jokes. I'm out there chatting to Trey's a friend of mine, not realizing there's 30,000 people watching this there. And I'm knocking out jokes left, right, and center. So that was a wild experience. But knowing that this year that there was the live stream on, I just made sure every time I went past to say something nice to people watching, because the reason these things get a lot of attention is because people choose to tune into them. Yep. They want to see what's going on, and they want to get a feel and understanding of how the runners are doing and how they're feeling. So I try and provide a little bit of context to that. Also, shout out my football team in the UK many times, because we were playing at Wembley the next day in a cup final. So that was good. It was really, really, really enjoyable, and great to see the reach and the impact. And again, that live stream, I know it really kicks up as the race goes on. We were just watching it a few minutes ago, and there was 20,000 people watching the live stream, which is crazy to see how that goes on. But it's interesting, the fact that we now have the capacities to live stream things through social media and allow people to be present in the moment of when things happen. I think live sports has a really beautiful element to that, and you have that with your traditional big sports, football, soccer in my country, and you feel present, you feel a part of it. Watching a highlight reel is a little bit different to watching a game live when you witness that moment happening. But when it's with running, often marathons are televised. Boston Marathon next week, televised. People can tune in and watch that there. But I think with a race like this, where there are so many moments of will they make it, won't they make it, there's jeopardy, there's tension. Capturing that through a live stream is actually a really fantastic way to keep people entertained, to keep people watching, keep people hooked. And I think, especially in the running world, the sport is growing and there's more eyeballs on it. But as from an aspect of spectators, I think that's where the next big key is. Like, how do you get people to watch the sport? Participation numbers are up, which is fantastic. More people running is wonderful for the sport, but you also need people to be watching, fans of the sport, tuning into these races. I think you got the likes of UTMB now having guys with live stream cam setups on the course running behind some of these races, which I think is a fantastic way to allow people to really understand what the conditions look like. It's all well and good seeing people start and finish in Chamonix, where it's a nice flat town, but the conditions up there at UTMB is, there's some crazy climbs going on, big uphills, big downhills. And so I remember watching that this year thinking, wow, this is incredible to be able to witness what's actually happening in real time as well. Seeing runners pass each other on course, and you realize just how, UTMB is a 100-mile race with a crazy amount of elevation. And actually to see guys run that fast on the ups and the downs, you really do understand, like, okay, these guys aren't like trudging 100 miles. These guys are racing 100 miles on an extremely difficult technical course with a crazy amount of climbing in there. So I think the more opportunities you can capture those moments as they're happening, it creates more of an emotional connection to the sport, because you feel a part of it. You're not just consuming the content, you're watching it live. You feel, it pulls in your emotions to see what these guys and girls are doing out there. And I think that's a really beautiful way to capture that.
For those who are 15 minutes into this podcast, don't know what we're talking about, describe what the Go One More Ultra is, the format.
So the format is a backyard ultra marathon. So it follows standard format. On the hour, every hour, you must run 4.2 miles or 6.7 kilometers for my European listeners. You can take as long as you want to do that, as long as within the hour. Obviously, the faster you run, the more rest you have for that remaining hour. And the slower you go, the less rest you have. The race carries on until only one person is remaining. So this year, I believe we had 150, 160 runners. The race does not stop, as it has now gone on for 3 days as we're filming this, until only one person remains. At present moment, there are two runners left. We've got Mark and we've got Kendall, who've both been dogging it out. And the race, once only one person remains, they must then complete a single lap themselves, where they are crowned the winner. One winner, every other person is a DNF, did not finish, and you get a horseshoe that says DNF, and the winner gets a golden horseshoe that says first place. So it's a very much a winner-takes-all format race. Last year, when this race was held at around 256 miles, I believe, a storm of biblical proportions hit the ranch and Texas, and I've never seen anything like it. I was out for dinner with my friends celebrating, what we'd done, and I've never seen a storm like that with the rain, the thunder, the lightning. And you got to remember as well, safety of runners is always paramount, right? So you have to make sure that if there are things going on like thunder and lightning, there's you got to take that seriously. So that's how it ended last year, in a tie between Kim and Kendall, and this year somewhat of a rematch between the two of them. But obviously you've also got some amazing runners. You've got Harvey Lewis in the mix there, and you've got Mark as well, who's an absolute savage at this game. He's been crushing backyard ultras for a while, training up in Minnesota in some pretty brutal cold conditions. Yep. So it's great to see him doing that down here in Texas, where it's a little bit warmer. As someone who lives in a cold country, I can tell you that getting used to the heat down here and the humidity down here is a different game. So he's absolutely crushing it. And it's great to see two guys who not only fantastic athletes, but fantastic gentlemen as well, who've been looking after other runners in the course, being very, very kind, courteous, helpful. Great to see them both crush it.
You did 102 miles last year, if I'm not mistaken, 119 this year. Why ultras for you? Why the Go One More Ultra? Why the ultra format?
I've always been fascinated with covering mass distances. To be fair, the backyard ultramarathon format, I don't particularly enjoy the format itself. Ironic considering I've done two of them now. It's a very unique type of challenge, because it's much more of a mental game than it is a physical game. You're not trying to run 100 miles, you're not trying to run 200 miles, you're trying to run 4.2 miles. That's it. The only thing you got to think about is this next round. That's it. If you start thinking too far ahead and get ahead of yourself, you're gonna overthink things. And it's one of those things that you can't outthink the race. You can't out-strategize it. You have to just be very present and go, hey, I'm on a deadline to get in before this time, to get a certain amount of food in, to get a certain amount of fluids in, and be ready to go for the next lap. It is obviously incredibly brutal that when you go through a night period where you're trying to sleep and trying to get 5-minute sleeps, there is nothing fun about sleeping for 5 minutes and then someone waking you up saying, hey, you got to go run again. That is wholeheartedly one of the most unenjoyable experiences I've ever had running. You've just fallen asleep. You're covered in sweat, you're filthy, you're tired, you finally lay down, you manage to get yourself to sleep, you nod off, and then someone immediately shakes you on the shoulder, time to go run. And again, I practice this sleep technique. It's all well and good doing that, back home in London where, I'm in my nice warm apartment, it's fine, I'm feeling safe. It's another thing to do that when, you've been running for, at this point, like 70 miles, you are tired. There is a huge part of you that's saying, just stay asleep. You can just stay in bed.
Warm
it's all
showers
over.
calling your name.
Warm showers calling you over. Hey, it's quite nice out there. Pretty cold out on the ranch. Like, do you want to go back out? And it's the game. The game is the internal battle between the one voice in your head that's trying to seek comfort, trying to keep you safe. Hey, we're in bed. We're resting. Like, let's just stay here. The other voice in your head that's saying, get up. That's it.
The David Goggins in your head.
Get up in there. For me, it's actually from the new Game of Thrones show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
Never seen Game of Thrones.
You don't even have to watch Game of Thrones to it. There's a new spin-off show, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Phenomenal show. There's a scene in there where he's getting flashbacks when he's in a battle, and all he hears is, get up. I just play that in my head. And I literally...
Have you ever seen Gladiator?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's got some epic scenes, too.
It taps into something to you. And then, to be fair, what it often taps into is, like, my dad used to say something to me. So I grew up playing rugby, was my sport from when I was, like, 8 years old. Played through my 20s as well. Awesome sport, very physically demanding, brutal sport. My dad always used to say something, which was, you can't play rugby on the floor. So basically, get up. The second you go down, you get up. Whether you're making a tackle or you've been tackled, get up straight away. Because once you're on the ground, you're out of the game, right? You can't do anything. You're not helping your teammates out. You're not helping anything out. And yeah, you might get tackled and hit and you're laying down on the ground and feeling sorry for yourself because you're just being whacked. But when he always says that, you can't play rugby in the ground, my immediate response is always, absolutely right, get up. Let's make things happen. Nothing's happening when you lay on the ground. Get up, get moving. Whether or not you feel like it does not matter. It's the actions that matter. Getting up. So in rugby, I might be hurting, but you get up. The opposition looks at you thinking, okay, that didn't hurt too much. You're there in your defensive line with your teammates. They're like, hey, he's here. He's covering us still. We're good. We're not short-numbered now. And that always stuck with me. And he said it for years and years and years. And same with life. Life's not played laying down, feet up. It's played on your feet. Get up, make things happen. And that's always stuck with me. So I always have my I can literally recall my dad yelling at the pitch side, get up. Whenever I went down, even if I made a good hit, good tackle, I went down too. It's like, how quickly can you bounce back up? It's a metaphor for life. Same with everything. You're going to have moments where life knocks you down a little bit, and you can either sort of lay there for a little bit and be like, well, woe is me, how unfortunate. Or you can be like, hey, we took a hit, but we're getting up. It's the actions that define us, not how we feel about them. And often, by taking that action to get up, whatever it is in life, whether it's running, whether it's life, work, whatever the setback is, you getting up and giving it another go, it builds something within yourself. It says to you, hey, no matter what happens, I'm still going to get up. I'm going to face my challenges head on. And that's why there's a really big beauty to this format where you are hurting, you're tired, you're fatigued. You want to stay in that chair. That chair is very comfortable. 80% of people who run this format of a race quit in the chair.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And I remember hearing that before I did the first thing, and I was like, why would you quit in the chair? Like, just go out and do another lap. And then I did the race last year, and I remember being at like mile 85, and I'm in the chair, and I'm like, no, I get it now. This chair is really nice. When I'm in this chair, things aren't hurting as much. I got my crew around me. I've got cold drinks next to me here. I've got ice water going over the back of my neck. This is really nice. This is comfortable. My feet aren't hurting because they're up resting. This is so nice. So when I remember thinking then, yeah, this is exactly why people quit in the chair, because it is so comfortable, and you have to make that choice to take yourself out of comfort, stand up, walk to the line, and say, hey, I'm going to give this another go. And hey, you know what? If I go out on my feet on the course, fair play. I went out on my feet. And actually, that's one thing I saw this year was so many people going out on their feet. They would end because they got timed out on the loop. They attempted another lap at least. And that's great. And that, I was saying that to everyone I met on the course, saying, hey, when it gets that time when you can't go any further, just do me a favor. Don't quit in the chair. If you're done, you're done. That's fair enough. But get up and go start another lap. Even if you walk 10 feet, then turn around and ring the bell, fair enough. You start another lap. You gave it a go. And that's what's going to sit with you. Does the position you come, the distance you ran, these things matter for a couple of days, What stays with you afterwards is, what is the attitude I went into this race with? And what is the attitude I finish this race with? Did I finish feeling sorry for myself? Was I pitying myself? Or did I say, hey, I'm still going to go up and stand that line and step over it when that bell rings? And at least I'm in the fight until the end, until wherever that end could be for you. I think that's a really beautiful thing. I always say that the only two things you can control in this world are your attitude and your effort. And in a race like this, attitude is so damn important. Keeping your head up, held up high, smiling through the pain, like staying positive, maintaining a level of belief about yourself, because throughout the course of these ultras, you have so many ups, so many downs. Knowing during those great moments, appreciate them, enjoy the great moments to it, but also understand that at some point, I'm not going to feel so good. And you go on this big downhill, and then all of a sudden you're feeling pretty terrible. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Things are hurting. Everything's getting stiff. You start doubting yourself, panic creeps in. And in those moments, you must remind yourself, this too shall pass. And that's, again, metaphor for life. The good times, they're fantastic. We've got to enjoy them and appreciate them when they're there, not take them for granted. But the bad times, they also don't last. And when you're in the bad times, just remember, hey, this is just a temporary situation I'm in. I'm going to make my way out of this. This too shall pass. And that's something that I, wholeheartedly believe in. And that's an attitude I make, I hold to myself for my life. Whenever I'm in times of struggle or times of discomfort, or I've had some bad luck, just remember, hey, this too shall pass. What I have to keep doing is showing up. Same with this race, I just got to keep showing up. If I put another lap in there, I'll be fine. Some of my best laps were some of my later rounds. I just finished up, I remember lap 27 of this race, so 27 hours of running in, I was feeling fantastic, which is ironic because 12 hours before at nighttime, I wanted to cry. I was coming into my tent before the caffeine hit, literally curling up in a ball, being like, to my crew, I was like, guys, I feel fucking awful. I feel so bad. I don't want to be here. And they were like, hey, this will pass. Don't worry. Have some caffeine, have some carbs, have some food.
Was that the lowest moment of the race for you?
100%, yeah. Well, by not, because I weaned myself off caffeine for a few weeks to make sure that when I did take caffeine during the race, it would hit me hard. And going through the night, felt good. Getting some little sleeps in, they felt really, they felt good, the sleeps, and I felt a little bit refreshed afterwards. But after, at that point, you're looking at 8 hours of complete darkness, and your circadian rhythm starts to really kick in, being like, you need to go to sleep. And I'm not battling that with caffeine. I remember my team like, right, caffeine pills, a couple of paracetamols or Advils, you guys call them, Tylenol, you call them, and then chucked a Red Bull down, chucked a caffeinated G1M, Go gels, and then all that caffeine hit me in like the right moment. Because within like 5 minutes, I was at the start line and I was like smiling. I was like spotting people, new man. I was like, right, everybody, let's go. Let's have a great night there. And I was back in the game. And again, it's understanding that, again, those moments will pass. Could I have quit that moment? 100%. Of course I would have done. I felt really bad and quit there. But, whatever it is you're pursuing in life, understanding that you will be challenged. And that the point of these races is to challenge you, is to find your weak points and pull it out of you of like, hey, what do I do when that happens? Do I curl up in a ball and say, hey, I'm done, I'm not going to go out there again? Or do you say, curl up in a ball and be like, I feel terrible, but let's still keep pushing on? It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel all these things. You're feeling, you're not your feelings. The feelings, you're the person experiencing those feelings. If you feel scared, you feel worried, you feel full of doubt, that's okay. These are completely normal human feelings. And I always want to encourage that because, again, through what I do, I speak to a lot of people who, again, they're dealing with these struggles of insecurities and of doubt and all this. And I'm like, everyone feels them. We all feel those things there. The difference between someone who gets what they want and someone who doesn't isn't that they feel those things, is that they do it anyway. They do it in spite of those feelings. They take action and they have that agency of themselves to say, hey, you know what? I might feel a little bit out of my depth here. I might feel a little bit, doubtful about my capacities, my abilities, but I will give it a shot. And that's the only message I always put out there on social media is like, hey, you know what? Sometimes we don't feel too great about ourselves, and sometimes we face big challenges in life, and that's okay. And that's a human experience. It's a part of the process. You can't have the good without the bad. You can't have the nice sunny laps on course without the rainy, cold night ones. The two work in tandem, and just understanding that, good times around the corner, but you just have to keep pursuing them. You just have to keep working at whatever it is, and understand that it's okay to feel those things, but you still have to keep showing up, because it's in the showing up, it's in the action that you take is what defines you, not in, how you feel about it.
Yeah, one of my favorite things when I go in the cold plunge, because I just like hate cold water, is like you are stronger than your feelings. You're stronger than your emotions. Because emotions and feelings, as you're talking about, are things you feel. They aren't necessarily an embodiment of you and your whole identity.
Absolutely.
In regards to you saying this too shall pass, it's funny because Joey used that exact line. So maybe this is a catchphrase going around the community.
I've been putting all my videos on
Okay,
during the ultra.
Maybe he stole it from you. Maybe
Thanks,
you put it
Joey.
in his subconscious.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between like hearing something and feeling it and conceptually being like, that makes sense, that's smart, you're wise, and someone who's gone through experiences that have taught them that lesson.
For sure.
So what was the first time you heard that phrase, this too shall pass, and what was the experience with it? Because I think a lot of listeners today, if you're in the shithole and you're like going through it, it does not feel like it'll pass.
No.
And you're like, oh, I thought it was gonna pass a week ago or a month ago or
dude, you can sit in that for a pretty long time. And again, that could sometimes be a day, sometimes could be a week, sometimes could be a month, sometimes could be a year, but it will pass. And the thing is, it's the amount of action you take during those periods towards positivity, towards improvement, towards whatever it is, that will build that momentum forward. If you want to wallow and stay in that feeling, then that's fine, but you're going to stay in that feeling a lot longer. And again, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to say, hey, you know what? I feel pretty shitty about myself right now, but I'm still going to respect myself. I'm still going to show up. And I think that's the core part of it. You might not like where you're at in life. You might not like the experiences you're going through, and you might be hurting inside. And believe you me, I've been there many, many times, but I will not then say, well, I'm not going to respect myself and show up for my responsibilities and the care and love I have for myself. I'm not going to let whatever I'm feeling dictate my actions. You know, I can feel these things. It's okay to feel these things and understand your emotional feelings. Don't block them out. Embrace it and understand them. And then still take the action, still do it anyway, still show that level of self-respect to show up for your responsibilities. For me, that's my running. No matter what, I say, hey, you know what? I may not feel great today. I may feel upset, or things may be brought up inside of me for where it is. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show myself the respect to go and show myself love and take care of myself today, whatever that could be like. And that doesn't have to be running. And I know it's a running podcast and we're both into our running, but that doesn't have to be running for everyone. You know, being kind to yourself and showing self-respect could even be things like, hey, I'm going to clean my apartment today. I'm going to just make my bed today. I'm going to do a few errands that I need to get done, because a future me will be grateful for those things there. I think it's really powerful and really important because, again, you know, I come across a lot of people who are struggling in life and in really difficult phases of life. And it's very easy to not. It's very easy to not show up and not do these things because you go, oh, I just feel so bad. I don't want to do this. And I remember, like, back in 2024, just before I joined BPN, I went through a terrible breakup. I felt like the worst person in the world. It hit me out of nowhere. I was struggling so badly, and I wanted to wallow in my misery. I don't want to do anything. I just come off a big running challenge. I did a 600-mile run over 11 days in the United Kingdom. And so I was physically hurting, and I really couldn't run at that point. Like, I was dealing with crazy amount of swelling on my legs, and I was being really careful on my return to run to make sure I didn't, injure myself. So that was out the window. And I remember going through this breakup, and I literally, from like the day after, I felt so bad. And I've just done this big challenge for a mental health charity called Calm in the United Kingdom, which is called the Campaign Against Living Miserably. It's a suicide prevention charity I'm an ambassador for. And I talked a lot about, through the bad times, how you take care of yourself and how you still show up even when the future doesn't look that positive. It's like, it's okay. You have to make, you have a level of agency of your life to make that future better. And that self-belief in that. And, I've been talking this big game, spent 6 months training for this thing and going out and raising a bunch of money for this charity that I support. And yet all of a sudden I'm now here hurting and feeling like shit. Pardon my language.
You're good.
And
You're totally fine.
Cool. And then it's like, what can I do? What is within my control? Well, I can't run right now, but what I can do is I can go for a 30-minute walk every day, every morning. What I can do is, I can go to the gym, lift some weights. That's fine. Not my legs, but I'll do the upper body. That's okay too. I can spend a bit more time reading and journaling. That's good for me. I know that's good for me. I can do that. What I can't do is feel sorry for myself. I can't be in the situation where I'm sitting here being like, how unlucky am I? All this sort of stuff there. During that challenge, I had lots of people who came to join me throughout it who had used the charity services. And they're leading the charge against suicide. They're a big suicide prevention charity. And lots of people who have used their services came out to support me. And during that run, they were telling me the terrible places they've been in life and how bad their lives were and how the charity had really helped them to get through those moments. So for me to sit there and be all sad about myself, feeling sorry for myself, because I went through a breakup, it gave me a lot of perspective on things. I said, well, you know what? If I'm telling these people who are going through really terrible life moments and they've come around from that and they then decide to show up and help me out on my challenge and be there for me and support me, the least I can do is respect myself enough to separate the emotions I'm feeling from the actions I'm now taking going forward. And, you know, because I can't run, okay, it's fine, but I'm still going to respect myself. I'm still going to go walk, make sure my apartment's clean, take care of certain things. And through that motion and through that, hey, I'm going to do something each day, all of a sudden, you build that motion in your life, you build that momentum, and all of a sudden that positive energy you're bringing out, those positive feelings you're getting from doing these things, from respecting yourself, changes that internal dialogue to feeling sad, feeling down, feeling unhappy, to all of a sudden...
You have actions. Yeah, we're reflecting on our actions. And also, man, I think it's like, a lot of people don't like this mindset. So if you're one of those people,
go for it.
Make it a debate. Let's go. Make the pod interesting. But like, one of the most impressive, powerful things that you can go through, I think, in life is always pointing the finger at yourself, even when it doesn't necessarily make sense to. Like, even if it was someone else's fault, pointing the finger at yourself and saying like, well, what am I going to do about it? Or how am I going to handle myself? If someone's like really petty or a shitty friend to you, rather than being like, oh, it's all their fault and wallowing in that, being like, okay, what does it say about me, the fact that I'm still clinging on to this and not moving forward and not taking action on this? And I just had on the podcast Matthew Centrowitz. He won Olympic gold 2016 in the 1,500 meter distance. It was the first American to win since 1908. And he said this quote I love that kind of went off of what you were saying in terms of like the difference between just saying things and embodying things. And he said, it's one thing to write things down on a mirror, because he was talking about like how everyone writes like Olympian, future Olympian on the mirror. It's one thing to write things down on a mirror. The idea is having more repetitions of saying it to yourself, because the more you say it, the more you actually believe it. What really matters is convincing yourself that you don't even have to convince yourself later. On race day, it's gold. It's not even up for question. It's not even you hesitating while saying it.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
100%. It's one thing saying the affirmations in the mirror, right, and almost like trying to make yourself believe it, and then there's believing it. Two very different things. But to get to that belief point, you almost have to go through those actions of repetition. And like that's the work that goes through. But back to your early point, it's a fantastic point you made as well, pointing the finger at yourself. Not being like, wow, this person's done me dirty here. Wow. But how bad them. It's like, okay, well, yeah, they did me dirty, but you know what? It's my life. It's my responsibility. What, I'm going to sit here and just be all sad about it? It's like that whole saying. It's like, you know, I'm not going to sit here picking my wounds just to show everyone I still have these wounds here that I was hurt.
Wow.
Do you like that one?
That is good.
How, you know, it's so true. You know, it's you know, I'm not. No, it's almost like picking your wounds so there's evidence to say that you've been hurt constantly.
Wow.
Or do you want to let it heal? And for me, it's like, okay, well, if I want to keep picking those wounds, that's fine. But guess what? No one cares. No one's around to watch that, because the person who inflicted it, they're not here anymore. We're not in court. There's no judge, there's no jury. This is your life. This is your life. You're the only person. You are the judge and jury in that case there. And why are you picking at your own wounds to keep them alive, to keep them unhealed? For what evidence? Why? You may as well just put a Band-Aid over it. Say, hey.
It's the victim mentality. People love to say that they were hurt, and they want people to validate them in their hurt. And that's why who you surround yourself with is so powerful in life.
100%.
Before I get too far off that point, I want to ask you a question about the words we say in getting to the point where you believe it about yourself. What's something present day that you want to believe about yourself that you haven't fully quite allowed yourself to believe about yourself?
Oh, God, that's a really good question. I'm struggling with that one. I have an absolute belief in myself and what I can do. Not a belief in what I can achieve, but a belief in what I can attempt. I always say, no matter what, I can give everything a go.
Are you scared to believe anything about yourself that you? So, for instance, for me, there was a period in my life where, you know, if there was a fan of the podcast came up to me, I love your podcast. Thank you so much, appreciate it. You know, who are you? How are you? But, you know, friends of friends. I'd be, you know, at a run or at a coffee or at someone's house for dinner, and they'd say, oh, Dominic has a podcast. And it was just internalized in me, I don't know, uncomfortable, that I'd be like, oh, what's the name of it? I'll check it out. And I would say, no, like there are way better podcasts out there. And then the realization hit me last year where I said, if I don't even believe in my own product, why should anyone else?
100%.
Right? And so like for me, I think one for me was actually there's a difference between being confident about sports against my two older brothers and like, I'm going to beat you on the basketball court versus like, no, I actually think what I bring to the table, what I do, my ambitions is impressive, because I think we live in a world where we think confidence can be prideful when in reality, dude, you saying you're one of the best ultra runners in the world, like, is it prideful or is it true? Is it prideful or is it confidence? And so I think that was one for me that I struggled. So do you struggle at all to genuinely like be confident? Are you worried about, being deemed prideful at all, or no?
No, not at all in that sense there. I take a lot of pride in what I do. I understand that it comes from a place of positivity. It doesn't come from a place of greed or self-fulfillment. It comes from a place of helping others and serving others. I think there's a period of my life in my 20s where I was a very different person, and changed at that period of time where I was a very selfish individual. It was, what can I get? What can I gain from doing this? It was very much framed around that, as opposed to now, for me, it's,
What changed?
Inner work, working on myself, understanding, hey, this is a person, am I becoming the person I want to become? Am I, do I respect and like myself? That's something I really struggled with for a long time, is actually being someone I liked. I may have been on paper very successful. I had a really good career in financial tech.
Wait, let's pause though, because this is interesting. It sounds like at that period, in your words, you didn't necessarily like yourself. Yet you said 2 seconds before that you lived a very selfish life.
Yes.
How did those two coincide while being on paper seemingly different?
For a great question there. So when living a selfish life is, again, you're not serving up for others. You only care about yourself and your own self-interest. The problem with that is human beings, we're meant to help one another. It's in us. We're communal. We're not, like a wolf in the woods on their own. We thrive off those around us. We're community-based species where we need other people as much as they need us. And if you only think about what you get out of situations as opposed to how you can help those and serve those around you, it becomes very, it's almost like taking something that's three-dimensional turning into two-dimensional. It pulls it all down to a very basic level of wins and losses, as opposed to, the actual human experience is, for me, what success looks like now is very different to then. Success to me looks like is, how can I help people with what I'm doing? How can I find someone who's in a difficult spot and help them get through that, like I've got through difficult spots in life? Success to me is not just about what I achieve in running or in social media and all these things. It is about who I can help along the way. I think it's one of the saddest things in life is you get all those things you want on paper, money, status, achievements, yet you've not helped people along the way. You've not served other people or doing these acts of service in that sense there. And again, because ultimately, the greatest things we can do in life is helping other people. It's how we show up for other people. It's how we serve other people. It's how we can have an impact on other people. And again, I think I always, there's people I see who are uber successful, yet they've never seemed to want to lift up others or help others. And I think what a sad life that is to live, because you may have all these markers of success, yet inside there will be an emptiness because, some things there is never enough of. Whereas when you go at things with an angle of supporting others, helping others, and being surrounded by other people who are doing the same thing for you, it's the most beautiful feeling in life, and I'll never trade that for anything. It's like people saying, it's being able to say, I am enough. I have enough in my life. I have an abundance of everything in my life. I want for nothing because I am everything I want to be. It's the same reason why, we're at the studio today with BPN. I've got my crew with me, who are the guys who've helped me through absolutely everything on these challenges. When I did the London Underground run, they were there with me every single day, run the Capitals Challenge across the United Kingdom, crew me over the last couple of days of the Ultra. Those guys, we've all shown up for each other over so many years. We've supported each other, we've helped each other. They made me feel wanted, loved, heard, respected, and I've done the exact same thing for them. And it's such a beautiful bond we have, and that's something I would never trade for anything in the world, because that is special. That is irreplaceable. I can't buy that. I can't have enough money in my bank account to say, yeah, let me go now and get 4 guys who are there for me, helping me, pick me up when I'm down, taking care of me, will sacrifice things in their life for me, and that they know I'll do the exact same thing for them. That connection between people, between friends, between people you're romantically interested in, they are the most important things in this world. Yes, money's important. Yes, achievements are great things to get, but they should never come at the cost of having amazing people in your life who you can support, rely on, trust, because there's no greater feeling than that. And having people around you who can help you and support you. I've got I'm completely blessed in this life to have so many amazing friends and family around to help me. And when I went through really troubling times in my 20s, they were there to help me. I was able to speak to them about my problems. Again, not everyone is blessed to have that situation. So I do recognize there is a level of privilege to be able to have that in my life, where not everyone has that same access to support and help. Because as much as I want to sit here and be like, I got myself out of tough, difficult situations. Well, yeah, I put that work in, but I also had the support of other people to do that. And I never want to negate the fact that I was blessed enough to have people in my life who are willing to help me and support me. But again, go back to why I support that charities, because they do that for people who don't have a support system of people around them.
Yep.
And that's important for me. That's why, every time I do a big challenge, I always fundraise for the charity, because that's something that, as much as I know what it feels like to feel pretty shitty about yourself. I know what it feels like to not respect yourself and not like yourself. So for me, it's a big act of, yes, I got myself out of the situation, but with the help of others. There are lots of people out there who do not have that same privilege that I do to be able to do that. And I think it's super important to always, recognize those sort of things there. And that's why I support that charity and try and do as much work for them as possible and as I can. And also just raise awareness around their services and what they do, because a lot of people that are unaware of what they provide. So, whenever you see me doing something crazy or running across a nation or hopefully one day across a continent, it'll be as a case for doing that.
That's awesome, man.
Because it matters.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, thanks for the work you do. In regards to, this sort of conversation around money, and like if I offered you, Jonny, $1 million I'll write you a check for $1 million today, but you'll die tomorrow, would you take it?
Absolutely not.
$1 billion? Would there be any number?
Nope.
Exactly. So it's like, why do we make an idol and a god out of a thing that we wouldn't even trade the very thing that we aren't appreciating? And there was this, I was on my phone a second ago. If you saw, I was trying to pull up this thread. There was this Reddit thread that went mega viral a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was this guy who was like an executive, got to executive in his company, and just had this deep regret because he didn't really know his kids. And he said, 20 years from now, the only people who will remember that you worked late are your kids.
Wow.
Which I thought is so good. And a few of the responses below that. The graveyard is full of irreplaceable and important people. I don't remember what I was working on. I can't tell you why it was important, but I can tell you how my not being there made my kids feel.
Yeah.
Really makes you think about the trade-offs. Dude,
100%. And again, like, whilst I'm super proud of lots of achievements in my professional career and life, that sort of stuff there, it pales in comparison to, being able to be there for family moments with my friends, whatever that could be. I mean, I remember one of the most special moments I ever had was my best friend, a guy called Joe. He ran his first marathon in Copenhagen a few years ago. A week prior, I'd run a 50-miler in America in like upstate New York. And I knew how important it was to him, that because he'd been there to support me on lots of things I'd done, and he didn't know I was going to come to Copenhagen for it. And I remember I landed back to London, flew over from New York on the red eye, and I had to go home, get changed, get showered on like an hour's sleep, go back to the airport to fly to Copenhagen, to then be ready the next day to help him with his marathon, and just to be there to show up and support him. I always remember that. I remember thinking on that flight to Copenhagen how tired I was, how exhausted I was. But also I was like, he's been my best friend since I was 13 years old. Like, of course I'm not going to miss out on that moment and opportunity. Do I look back now and think, during that week, what was my business opportunities going on? How much money did I make that week? Or even that month? I don't remember any of that stuff. What I do remember is I got to be there for my best friend when he ran his first marathon. I got to jump on the course with him at the 35K mark, and it's like 22 miles. And then be there for him on course, run next to him, put my arm around him, tell him how proud I am of him when he was hurt and he's in the pain cave, he was grinding it through. That was special for me. That's important for me. I wouldn't trade that for $1 million. Yeah. Are you kidding me? That's a moment I'll cherish the rest of my life, and I hope he would too. But it's things like that. It's being there for the moments. It's being there for your friends, and having those relationships and those deep, meaningful connections in your life is what makes it all worth it.
You have these deep thoughts. I've noticed in ultra runners, their ability to connect with that part of their conscious, subconscious is way deeper than the average Joe, because they have so much time with their brain.
Yes. What
are some of the hardest conversations or realizations you had about yourself over the past weekend of running 119 miles?
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's a really, really good question. I have to come back to that one in a second. I'm trying to think. There's a few. I've done a bit of journaling since the race, but I kind of wanted to let some things marinate first. Throughout the entire race, I was overwhelmingly happy and excited and proud of the work I put in to be there. One thing I did before the race was I wrote a letter to myself. So a week out from the race, I wrote a letter to myself to read after the race, just to put down my thoughts, my feelings on paper. Because again, it's the journey to the race that for me is the most important thing. It's the becoming is everything. It's that journey. It's the what have you developed, what have you learned, what have you picked up about yourself, who have you become in order to be here. And I think that's super exciting. I think it's often overlooked as well because we look at the race, the medals, the positions, all these big things. What we don't often look at is that journey, that process is the most important part of it all. You know, you train 16 weeks for a marathon, you get a time, you get a medal. Well, later that day, you take the medal off. And most people don't really care too much about the time. You do, but you know, it's fair enough there. What is important is that 12, 16, 20 week build to that marathon. Because that's where the work is. That's where you become the person who can do the thing. It's not about having the thing. It's about being someone who can get the thing that's important. And that state of change, that state of development from when you say, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go chase this time or chase this race or chase this achievement, to then being the person who can do that. Because guess what? What have you learned about yourself and you pick up the habits, the skills, the disciplines through that process? That is the important part because that's what stays with you. The medal comes off the next day. I don't see too many people I know who've smashed some unbelievable marathon times wearing their medal a month, 2, 3, 4 years later. But what stays with them is who they have to become in order to do that. That's the really powerful thing there. That's why people chase these big goals in endurance, because for what it will make of you. For what it will make of you to achieve that, you have to, okay, I have to sort some things in my life out here right. That means I'm going to have to set some new rules for myself, new standards for myself. What time do I have to wake up now? Okay, I'm going to do that. How am I going to schedule in this? How can I show up for my friends, my family, my responsibilities, my work, and still do this? Okay, I'm going to have to get on top of this a little bit and just lift standards up everywhere. Or sometimes it doesn't, does the opposite. Sometimes it overpowers things. Sometimes you can look at a training blog on, damn, I've really not been there for my friends recently. Oh, damn, you know what? I'm not showing up for my partner. You know what? I'm actually slacking at work a little bit on this one here. What it does do is it puts a mirror up to yourself. And that's why I think it's so important to understand that, you know, it's not about sacrificing absolutely everything else in your life to become great at this one thing. It's about saying, hey, let's use this as a tool and mechanism to raise my own standards and how I want to be able to show up and have that sense of belief about myself. And that's what it is. It's building self-belief through doing these hard things and training for hard things. You know, training once, twice a day, every single day through a period, building that momentum, getting fitter, getting stronger, getting faster, understanding your recovery better, understanding yourself better, improving that relationship you have with yourself through means of improving that belief you have in your own abilities. As you stack that evidence week by week by week by week, you start to feel a lot better about yourself because you go, damn, you know what? I didn't think I could do that, but you know what? I did that. And that's going to stay with you because all of a sudden you go, you know what? Maybe there's other things in my life I thought I couldn't do. Okay, well, they are challenging and, you know, maybe I don't have, you know, I might not be able to get to there exactly now, but you know what I can do? I can start working towards that and break it all down. You know, you're trying to run a sub 3-hour marathon. For when you start going into it, you might not be able to make it this training block. But you know what I can do? I can get faster. I can get better at this training block. And from when I start training to when the race is, I'll be better. And then next time round, I'll be better again. I'll be better again. And the pursuit of better is, I think, such a beautiful thing. You know, it's the same as the whole saying, you know, the work is the win. You know, the work works on you more than you work on the work. It's so true because, again, like it's in the work is where all the best things happen and the best things come from because of what it makes of you in order to achieve whatever outcome you're chasing. Whether you get the outcome or not is almost like that's the byproduct. There's so many things out of your control. You know, you could turn up to race day and it's boiling hot. Okay, well, that's plans out the window. You could turn up and it's a crazy storm. Oh, that's out the window. You could turn up and it's cancelled because of bad weather, whatever it is to be. Okay, but you still become the person who could do it. That's something to be proud of.
Right.
You know, and it's that work through that block. But I think we should celebrate more. We should celebrate the work that we're doing far more than the outcome it gives us, because outcomes are, by their nature, they're a moment. They are passing, they're fleeting. Whereas that work, that period where you've committed to something, that is special. And that stays with you.
That's why I always respect the people who do the crazy work but have like no social following or aren't on social media, or because you and I, I'm sure, both know people who it's like, if you take away the numbers, would you really be doing this? You know?
For sure.
And that's where it's really hard to separate your identity from your sport or your passion if you're only doing it for the praise or the, you know, remembrance of other people.
100%. I think that's definitely a case of that. I mean, I was blessed that I was running for like 3 or 4 years before I ever made a video about running.
Yep.
I got I did a significant amount of work to get into it before I was like, oh, okay, this is actually quite cool. I'm up to, and I'll start sharing a little bit more about it, just simply to connect with more people in the space. I just didn't know that many people who were into ultra running, but my identity, certainly isn't tied to that. If you ping your identity onto being successful and winning and bettering than other competitors, that's a very dangerous place to be in. Whereas identity should be built in, kindness and how you show up for other people and how you show up for yourself and your attitudes and your self-belief. They're much more solid things to have an identity grounded in, because winning and losing, these things are sometimes flip a coin. It doesn't matter. Like, how could you
can't control it either.
You can't control it either. So attaching your identity to things so flippant as that is such a strange thing. Whereas having your identity attached to really core things that no matter what outcomes happen, that's true. I know that, hey, during that race, I showed up for all the people around me. I made sure I supported those people who were running on that race, not only as an athlete, but as a member of the BPN team, making sure that if anyone was, anyone fell or hurt themselves or injured, I made sure I was there to help them out. I make sure that people were struggling with something, I could give some advice on whatever it was. That for me that's more important than whatever outcomes happen. Did I hit a distance PR? Absolutely. Am I proud of that? Yeah, for sure. It was an amazing experience to do that. But at the same time, would I sacrifice how I conduct myself on course for maybe a few more laps? Absolutely not. There are far more important things than your own successes and outcomes in these races, and how you go about conducting yourself and how you can leave a lasting impact on those around you is always far more important than that.
Yep. No one will remember how many miles you ran, except maybe the guy interviewing you. But on course, no one will remember how many miles you ran, but they'll remember how you treated them, the respect you showed them, the
100%.
Word of encouragement. And if you're a listener, same thing, if you run cross country or track, you have teammates. Your teammates probably don't care that much about your results as much as they care about who you are as a person and what you show up with.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? It's people never forget how you make them feel.
Yep.
For good or bad. I go back to times in my life when someone's made me feel terrible. That's stuck with me.
Yeah, my mom always said, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you say it.
100%. Yep. Yeah. No, there's a lot of always good mum lines in there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, a lot of them stuck with me there. Especially things that come down to manners and whatnot. And one thing my mum does that I actually do now is she's big into manners. If she holds the door open for someone, they just walk through without saying thank you.
Yeah.
She will be like, "Excuse me," and I remember as a kid, being out somewhere with my mum and she'd do it, and I'm like, "Oh no, mum, not this again." But now I'm the person who does that. I hold the door open for someone, and they didn't say thank you, I'll go, beg your pardon, or excuse me. And they're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It helps being 6'4" and quite a big guy when you do that though these days. When my mum was doing it, she's like, little English woman there sort of saying that. It's a little bit different, but no.
Dude, people have lost the art of being grateful for things.
For sure.
That's another podcast for another time, but we, I think, take advantage of what other people can do for us. And I think it's one of the most refreshing, reframing things to be around a grateful person.
Yes.
Because you pick up on, wow, you're saying thank you a lot, or you're being grateful a lot, to the point where you're like, oh, would I say it in that situation or scenario? And we don't realize, I think, how many things we take for granted. Even you and I both, not to loop you in with me, but even being in the studio, it's like, I used to watch Nick's podcasts years ago, and now to be sitting down with someone like yourself, wise, accomplished. To me, I've gotten to the point where this is just another thing. But then when I think about generosity and gratitude, I'm like, whoa, let me take a moment. It is 100%. A blessing. One person could listen to this podcast, and it's still amazing to be here, to have made it here. But we always, I read this quote on my podcast with Joey, so maybe it's just sticking with me.
Go for it.
The quote was, I have a hard time celebrating my achievements because in my mind it was my obligation to achieve them.
Yeah.
The dilemma of the high achiever.
It is a hard one, because when you're confident in your goals and your ability to achieve them, you sometimes can find it hard to celebrate it, because it's like, I expect it of myself. When you set yourself high standards, you expect to meet those standards. That's why it goes back to celebrating the work that it took to get there. Yep. Not celebrate the achievement, but celebrate how hard you've worked for something, because that's you're celebrating having the high standards. It is a paradox. It is hard sometimes, with social media being an example. I said, hey, I'm going to work really hard at this. I'm going to improve my content, understand media better, how to make better videos, how to make an impact on my audience, and that's worked. I've grown a pretty decent sized following over the years, and that's still growing. It's going well. But also sometimes remember, give myself the grace and to be well, hang on. I know you expected that, but that wasn't guaranteed. Like, I know you believed you could do something, but let's just take a second to hear like all those like nights of watching stuff on YouTube about how to edit certain things in a certain way, or how to become better at storytelling, or how to communicate things differently, or even how to speak differently. I used to have a challenge. I still sometimes do this where I speak a little bit too fast. So I went to get elocution lessons and understand pacing and tonality. I did all these things just to try and get better at what I was doing. And I think sometimes I forget that because I'm like, well, yeah, that's just what you got to do. It's like, well, yeah, but you still did them, and that took time and effort and resources to do that, and you made that decision to go and do those things in order to become better at what it is you're doing. Yes, you've reached an outcome that you thought you were going to get, but also like be kind to yourself and respect yourself in the fact of saying, hey, yeah, but you did all that work. Like, yes, that's what you need to do to get to the outcome, but you still did it. And I know, I'm someone who gets the work done. I'll always be that guy, but at the same time, had the grace for myself to be like, yeah, but dude, you actually did that work, and it wasn't easy. And I know you wanted to. I know for you wanted to do it because you get that result, but also like that's not common. Like, it's easy to do. It's easy not to do. It's easy to sit on the couch and watch TV. It's easy just to like, not sit up and edit. Like yesterday, the last thing I wanted to do was sit on my editor and just go through stuff. I'm coming off a day of running for nearly 30 hours straight. The last thing I wanted to do last night, I had some food with my team. I came back in. I was like, I actually have those two things to get editing and get done and make sure they're ready to be posted by tomorrow morning, because of the time difference in the UK, 6 hours behind here. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that goes out at an appropriate time, not at midnight. Okay, well, that means I need to do this now. So I remember literally being in bed last night, 9:30, being like, yep, okay, cool. And like, but in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, of course I did that. That's just part of the work. But in reality, it's like, no, I did it at that time because, hey, that's a standard I set for myself. Yep. And that means a lot. And again, it's a part of me, one part of me is very much being like, yeah, but of course you did. Like, that's just who you are. And that's what you did. The other part of me is like, no, like it was easy. It was to just lay on my bed and put a film on and just chill and being like, hey, you just push yourself for 30 hours straight and you're a bit cooked. And, just got to remember that it's not always the most normal thing to do. But, when you have set high standards for yourself, it's great to hit those goals. But also remember, like, standards come at a price and come at a cost. And, respect yourself for having those high standards and doing that work, and applaud yourself a little bit.
100%. Final question for you here today. I could talk to you for many more hours.
So I could yap with you all day long. This is fantastic.
We'll have to run it back soon. You've talked a lot about becoming in this conversation. Yes. Core theme. Final question. Wrap it up. Put a bow in this conversation, which has been lovely. Who are you trying to become? And what would you have to do, looking forward on your deathbed, to look back on your life and feel like you became the fullest version of yourself?
Oh, what a beautiful question that is. Beautiful question. I always go back to the simple answer is, who do I want to become better? It's an endless pursuit of something that I know I can never achieve, because it is just becoming better, becoming someone who...
Will you ever feel fulfilled, though, if the carrot's always moving?
Yes, because it's in the pursuit that is fulfilling.
Okay.
It's in the attempt that is... The glory is in the attempt, not the achievement. It's in I'm trying to be better, and that is an attitude I'll hold on myself forever. Touch wood. It's not a destination; it is a direction. Am I improving these things in my life? Am I constantly trying to work at things in my life? And again, we're all people. We're all flawed. And as much as I'm trying to say, being like, just ran for 30 hours straight, BPN athlete, Lululemon and back, all this sort of stuff there. I'm a deeply flawed person. I make mistakes every single day. I make misjudgments, miscalculations. I do things that don't work. There's endless things constantly. No matter who you are in this world, you will make mistakes. We're all flawed people. We all have false beliefs about ourselves sometimes. That is okay. But the goal should be saying, when you make those mistakes and errors, not to be too hard on yourself, but also to say, I want to be better at this. And that for me is always better. It is the direction, not the destination, that is the goal. My direction is always better than who I was yesterday. I'm in zero competition with anyone else out here. I'm just trying to be better than me. And it's not because I dislike myself, want to be better than that. It's because, no, out of self-love. I love the guy who I am today. I have so much self-love, but also at the same time, because I love myself, I want that person to be better. Same way if you have a partner or a friend or a family member who you love deeply and you want the best out of them, you want them to be better at whatever it is they're doing. And that's great. And for me, that's, how I show up for those people. How can I have an impact on those people? How can I help them? How can I help the people within my community, whether it's in London, the UK, or the wider world, who engage with my media or come to my events in London? I host a run club every Saturday where we have upwards of 200 people come to knock out 20 to 30 kilometers. And that's something I've been doing for 3 years straight now. How can I show up for those guys? How can I help have an impact on their lives? I think the most important thing you can do in this world is have impact on others from a positive standpoint. And for me, that's what success looks like. That's what, for me, I be on my deathbed happy because I know that through the things I've done, through how I've shown up, I've been able to make people feel better about themselves and wish for more for themselves and go out and achieve more. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, a goal to have, as opposed to how much money can I make. All those things are byproducts of success, and that happens. Money comes, money goes. It's all good. Not saying it's not important, but by going down a path of trying to be better, whatever it is, your standards will naturally rise. Greater opportunities will come for you. I didn't get invited to become a BPN athlete because I was the best ultra runner in the world, because I'm not. I got invited to become a BPN athlete because how I showed up for the people in my life, in my community, through my media, through the things I was doing, was something that that resonated with them. Same way with all the partnerships I've got, same with every great opportunity I've had in my life has really come down because I was willing to work hard for it, but my attitude was, how can I help people on the way? And the more I've lent into that, the more I've understood that about myself, the greater opportunities in life have occurred and appeared. And so for me, for anyone watching this or listening to this, who may be in a difficult time in their life or struggling with this, is like your attitude is not only what you're saying to yourself, it's what you're saying about yourself to the rest of the world. What is the level of excitement and enthusiasm you're showing up to the things you're doing every day? Because that's not just telling you something, it tells those around you something about yourself. That is a capacity to lift up others and have a positive impact. I always look back in my life for the people who've had impact on me because they're enthusiastic about being there. That's why when I spend time with Nick, he's enthusiastic as hell about all the things he's doing. And I'm like, damn, that fires me up. That gets me going because, again, we're all susceptible to the influences we have around us, positive or negative. I know I'm incredibly susceptible to that. That's why I'm very careful about who I spend my time with, because I know that energy is infectious, for better or for worse, positive or negative. So again, knowing that, if you are going through a tough time there, that attitude you show up every day with, forget your circumstance, situations. They may be tough. They may be tougher than things I've ever faced. But your attitude and how you show up to those challenges is what will define you, not your circumstances right now. It's how you choose to show up every day for that. And that's something I wholeheartedly believe in. And that's my one message to anyone listening to this is, make sure, be kind to yourself, show up every day and do it with an attitude of how can I do this and uplifting other people on the way, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Jonny, wise man. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me on there. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.